What's up, everyone? I just wanted to take a second and let you know how much I appreciate all of our listeners and supporters of the podcast. If you enjoy the content, I'd greatly appreciate it if you could take a second to like, subscribe, share, and review our podcast. It really helps us out in ranking to get the word out about the industry. Now here's a brand new episode of All Wrapped Up.
Just because you've gone and taken the classes or that doesn't mean that every Avery certified installer is going to make every car app and every graphic come out pristine. Because once you get that certification and you leave, it's like, okay, you know how to, you've been certified, they've tested you. Now it's kind of up to you to determine whether or not you will do that.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to All Wrapped Up Podcast. We'll be interviewing industry-leading wrap companies to share tips, tricks, stories, and more. All right, so we'll go live. Now we've got Micah Bybee from Inkwise Graphics from Utah. What's going on?
Not much, man.
Good. Yeah. So typically how we start off the podcast, we usually like to get an insight of what you had going on today or what you got going on for the week.
Today I'm playing catch up. Been in California most of last week. And so catching up on designs, and then as well as a couple projects we got going on, wrapping a Can-Am, I think they're the Razors, a 4-door.
Oh, the 4-door Razors, yeah.
Yeah, it's wrapping one of those in all carbon fiber.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I've got an Evo bumper, JDM bumper project that we did earlier. He bought a new bumper and he brought that back in. And so we wrapped that up today in gloss black rose from 3M.
Black rose. I love that color. That's the one that flips from red to black, right?
Yeah, it's just that super dark black and red when it hits the sun.
Yeah,
it's great color.
Nice candy color. I love that. So what do you have going on for this, the Can-Am? It's just straight carbon fiber? Is it printed or are you using 1080?
I am actually using the Avery carbon fiber on that one.
Okay.
The guy is just a fan of carbon fiber. He's getting an aluminum roof made, and once that's done, he's like, oh, I want it carbon fiber, both sides. And I'm like, okay. He's just a fan of the carbon, so...
That's awesome. Now are you doing graphic overlays, kind of like over the old graphics where they would go, or just completely covering all the panels in carbon fiber?
We're covering all the panels in carbon fiber.
Wow.
So
disassembly is going to be fun.
Yeah.
So how do you have your shop set up? Do you have like a helper that helps you?
I do. I actually have a couple of them, kind of part-time helpers, depending on when we need them. I got a part-time mechanic, so every time that we do have a car that needs to be torn down, like completely torn down, he will come in and he will tear it down for me.
Nice.
It just, I do a lot of stuff here at the shop. I actually got into business designing, so I was a designer first, and then I shifted into production. So I still do all the designs and stuff, and so it's just way easier to have helpers do that stuff so that I'm not having to do it, because it's not hard. Tear down a car. I've got guys that make a lot of signage and stuff, and they take care of all that, so I don't have to do it.
Yeah, that frees you up to do what you like to do, which is good.
Yeah, and to do the more technical stuff, so I don't have to pay somebody more to design. Designers are inherently more expensive than shop helpers, so
definitely
I would rather do the design than doing and hire a helper than going the other way around.
Oh, I totally agree. Well, touching on your design background, so how did you actually get into the business? What were you designing prior?
I got into the business from an ad on Craigslist.
Oh, good old Craigslist.
Yeah, Craigslist back in the day. No, I was going to school for design, and always just been into art and everything. And my family, we're big skiers out here in Utah and Salt Lake, and I'm originally from Idaho, but big skiers. And so I would design skis. I would make my own top sheets and, draw them and everything. And we were just, making up stuff. And I saw this ad on Craigslist that needed somebody to design car apps. And so I'm like, okay. So I opened them up, and the way that I would go about designing skis, because they're two pieces and they never, quite touch.
Right.
But then you put them together and they have one graphic. So you always have that bleed that gets cut out, in between them.
Yeah.
Was kind of the exact same way that I went about designing cars, cutting out the windows, and the molding and the doors and everything like that. And I just applied, and they're like, cool, come in for an interview. And I sat down, and they put me at a computer, and they're like, okay, here's 30 minutes to design something on a car. And I was like, okay. And so I just designed it, and they're like, sweet.
You hired.
Yeah, basically that's kind of how it went. So
that's so funny. So what were you doing after you got hired? Just designing graphics or wraps at the time?
Yeah. So I was doing, so when I got hired, they had one designer currently, and they were getting ready to do a rebrand. And so I started designing car apps, and just like, banners and anything else that kind of came into the shop. A lot of tents and flags, because they did pretty much everything. But when they did the rebrand, the other designer, he was more like web-based and everything. He did all of their rebranding. So He was all internal stuff. And every customer and every client request got shoved to me. And so I did just client work for wraps for an entire year until I left that company. And so, I mean, I did everything from RVs to boats to, just mocking up a full color change, because people don't have that good of imagination apparently, all the way to, just a lot of commercial stuff. So
nice. What was the bulk of it? Just more commercial? That's kind of where the money is too, but
yeah, they were a big company. I think they're still the biggest wrap company in Utah in terms of volume. Lots of commercial stuff. I mean, we averaged probably, I want to say like one car app a day or one every other day that they would have going through the shop.
That's really good.
Yeah. So I designed a lot of stuff. And unfortunately, I still have it, but it was for another company. So I never post any of those things that I've done in the past. I'm not huge into most social media. I'm trying to get better, but I've just got, mass amounts of things that I've done, but they're always for other companies. And then with my own company, obviously I can't post that stuff and, show that work because, I was under contract with somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. That's always tough too. And there's a lot of people out there too that work for other companies that, the bosses actually encourage the employees to be social, to help kind of generate more awareness, more branding for the specific company, which is great too.
Yeah, no, now it's, they're all about that, and have your employees post, your work, because it's just more avenues to get it out there. Back when I was doing it, when I started there, it was about 6 years ago, 6 or 7, I'm trying to remember, and wasn't nearly as influenced as social media is now. So
yeah, a lot's evolved since the days of Facebook. So tell me your transition from working at a shop, being a designer, getting a constant paycheck every week, to now kind of biting the bullet and starting your own company. Tell me what you kind of went through creating your Inkwise brand.
Man, I went from being just full-time designer at that big shop, and that's all I did was design, every day, all day. And then I went to a smaller shop where there was still only 2 of us, but instead of just 2 designers, there was just 2 of us. We designed, print, install. That was it, just us. And it was actually at a body shop.
Wow.
So I dealt a lot with knowing about paint and how paint reacts and drying times and everything like that. And we would lay the paint masks on custom painted cars, and we would do, they also had a 60-foot paint booth there. So I did giant stuff. I mean, semi trucks and like cement mixers and everything. I mean, helicopters to airplanes to, whatever came through there that would fit in that paint booth. And so I worked there for a bunch of years. And I was working there. It was great. And it was just, I always kind of wanted to start my own thing. And it just came time that I was running their whole shop, their whole graphic side of the shop. And my wife got pregnant with my son. And it was just kind of, I was sitting there and we were looking at, everything working. She works full time as well. So she works and then I was going to be working and then, daycare and all that stuff. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to start my own thing and just start it from my house and be a stay-at-home dad, basically. And I'm like, it's, at least I'll be able to stay at home and with him. And if it's not going, as long as I'm doing, mildly well, it'll work out. And so I just, I quit and took some savings and I went and I bought my first printer. And it was in my basement for a couple of years. And I was just, I didn't want to do car wraps at that time because I had learned to wrap and I was wrapping cars and we were doing full wraps. But I understand the importance of doing it in a clean and big enough space to actually wrap. There's nothing worse than trying to wrap a car when you have like no elbow room and you can't move. Mm-hmm. So I like didn't advertise wraps hardly at all. If I did, I was like, okay, as long as you got a garage that's clean, I can come out there, do some stripes and stuff like that, hoods, roofs, simple things. But I was mainly just doing like banners and signs and, stuff that I could do, in my basement on my floor, and then I'd go deliver them. And they're like, oh, this is great. And I'm like, yeah, you have no idea that I made that on my kitchen floor.
Oh man. I'll tell you a story. I did a 20-foot sign, 2-pieced aluminum. It was it was like 36 inches, 2 pieces. They were 10 foot by 10 foot. And I did it. I had to remove my kitchen table out of my kitchen because my kitchen was the biggest room in the house or in my apartment. I had to take my kitchen table, all my chairs. My kids are looking at me like I'm a crazy guy, putting the aluminum on the floor and lettering the thing in my kitchen floor because I had a panel because it was one big graphic. Yeah. So I had to put them together. I couldn't like do them separately because I was afraid I couldn't seam them correctly. So I definitely know the struggle.
Yeah, no, it's funny. We there's a spot in my kitchen floor. We haven't replaced the laminate in there yet. We're gonna do that. And right there you can still see because I had a real estate sign account. And they're all 18 by 24 inch signs, but you can see just the outline of every sign where I used to letter them and then cut them on the side of them. And I didn't really care about cutting in the laminate because I knew we were going to replace it anyways. And so it's like so permanently funny. You can see the square like right in my kitchen where I used to make them. So
the scars of being a sign maker. That's so cool, man. I have such you and I are so alike. I have such a similar story. X went to work and I stayed home with my kid. My daughter at the time was just born, and I'd bring her with me to go do all my installs in the car seat. Lay her right next to me. Let her one door, pick her up, go to the other side of the van, let her that door, go up to my client, all set, ready to go. And it's funny, I bump into a lot of my old clients now, and I have my daughter with me. She's 11 now, and they're like, "Wow, is that your little one that you used to bring with you every time you used to come letter my trucks?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Damn, it's been that long." It's so funny, like the growth.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh man, this is so funny. This is why I love doing what I do, is hearing these types of stories and relating to a lot of these different struggles and hearing, that you had to stay at home with your son and work from home. It's just, I'm just here thinking about all those memories are coming all back to me now. It's so funny. Tell me about your printer.
Oh no. So, I have 2 of them now. I still have my original one that I bought.
You still have that
Um,
one?
I still have it.
Wow. Which one
it's
was
kinda,
it? What'd you get?
It is a Roland Versa Art 640.
Mm.
So a 64-inch Versa Art, similar to the Versa Cams that
Yes.
they came out with, except it does not have the print and cut capabilities. It doesn't have a cutter in it.
Okay.
So that was my first printer. Now it's just kind of sitting here as a backup printer, and I think honestly I should probably just get rid of it because I'm not using it, and it's still a great printer, but I'm just not using it as much. The new one that I got, I just bought earlier this year when we moved in to the building because we finally had space for it. It is the Roland VIS VG640, so their brand new printer.
Yeah.
And I'm running 7 color on it.
Oh.
So CMYK and then light CMYK as well.
No white, right?
No white.
Good.
Yeah, I thought about it, but unless you're doing it every day, it's a waste.
It gums up the heads. Yep. Yeah, it's continuously cleaning with the white. A great option, don't get me wrong. Great option, but
yeah, hopefully here in the next couple of years or something they'll kind of be able to work out that issue, and then I think it would be a killer thing to have.
Yeah, now are you running the 500 bags on those?
Yes. Yeah, the 500 mil bags. Way better ink and uses way less ink than the old cartridges, and that thing goes forever, and it's beautiful prints. I love it.
I agree. The cartridges kind of sucked because you always had a little residual in those cartridges. Yeah. They never used the whole bag in it. It was never used. So, I mean, granted, you spend a little bit more on the bags, but I mean, you don't have to buy them as much, which is great.
Yeah, I don't have to buy them as much, and they almost come out like pretty even with the old ones, because old ones they came in the 220 or the 440 cartridges,
right?
And now they have the 500 mils in the bags, and I think the 500 mil ones are only like $20 or $30 more than what I was getting the 440 ones for, and they last longer. So I'm like, I was all about that.
Well worth it. Well worth it. Yeah, sure. Tell me about your printer. What do you like about it? How come you chose Roland over what's out there?
HPs, Epsons. Trying to think what else they have. The Mutos.
Yeah.
When I first started, we were using HPs. Started using HP printers, and we were using the Onyx RIP software.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had cutters, and I think we had Graphtech. Not 100% sure on that. And so that's what I started with. And then, those are 3 separate purchases.
Right.
You go get an HP printer, and I think they're around 10 grand or so.
Mm-hmm.
The Graphtech cutter, their big one is about, I want to say $7,500, or maybe it's dropped in a bit. And then Onyx, for the RIP software, it's another large chunk of money.
Yeah.
And so I was adding all those up, and I was like, okay. And this is my thought process when I went to buy my own printers. So those are the printers I started with, and then when I moved shops, those guys had Rolands. And it's the first time I'd ever used them, and they just used everything Roland. The printer comes with its cutter in it. So I was like, okay, so it comes with a cutter. It's 2 machines in one, and then it comes with its own RIP software. And the VersaCam, man, it's a pretty good RIP software.
It's not bad.
No, it's not bad. And I mean, honestly, for most things, it'll get you by, and nobody's going to say anything. Mm-hmm. And if they do say something, they're in the print world. And so then you're like, okay, well, why are you having me do this? Obviously, it's a good software, especially with their new one, the VersaCam Dual that they came out with the new printers. And for me, when I was just starting, and I was like, okay, I got to get, equipment's massive expense. Mm-hmm. If you're running the full print shop, it was just the most economical choice for me, and for my space requirements. I can't have a 64-inch printer and a 72-inch cutter and a 64-inch laminator and I can't have all of those in my shop. It's just too much space.
Right.
That I just didn't have. And, I'd used them before. I've liked them. And when they came out with the new one, with with their new Viz inks and everything, they stepped away from Epson, because Epson used to make the roll-in heads, the print heads,
Right.
and they used the Epson inks. And then with the new Viz inks, they make their own inks and, their own print heads and everything. It was just, we saw it at a demo, and it was just incredible. Like the colors and everything that it was printing, I was just blown away. And I was like, this is awesome. And then they're like, oh yeah, it's printing on high speed. And I'm like, what? And they're like, oh yeah. And so now, I mean, I just love it, because I make a lot of real estate signs, and I print them all at high speed because they're just quick. They go out the door, and you can't tell a difference. And it saves me so much time.
Well, ink too.
Yeah, and ink,
Yeah.
time and ink. And so I'm just like, it's been great for me.
So you probably know the one thing I'm going to ask, how's your blacks?
It's always hard, because you always just used to have just your blacks, with black ink. And then every time you wanted to hit your gray tones, it always comes out green.
Yep.
And with the new, the Viz ink, the one that I have, is it does have the light black ink cartridge, and everything just comes out pristine. No greens in any of my blacks. They're all true grays. It looks great. I actually have a poster, or a sign that I made printed on my printer that's hanging up above it. I think I posted a picture of that on my Instagram, with the girl with the colorful hair.
Right. I did see that.
Yeah, that's actually, Roland uses that as is one of their pictures that they print out, to show the colors and everything. The whole face is all in just gray tones, no colors, and just the hair is colored. And man, it's just great. It's just perfect black and whites. And I actually my sister is a fine artist. She graduated with a degree in fine art. Wow. And she does oil paintings. And she called me up and she's like, hey, I did this oil painting and I want to sell some prints of it. And I'm like, okay. And it was all just black and white, just a black and white abstract, beautiful oil painting. And so she sends it to me, she's in Miami, and she had a really good scan of it. She went to a shop, had a really good scan of it. I'm like, all right, I brought it out here. We loaded some canvas up in the printer and printed it out. And I sent it out to her, and she was like, it's perfect, And wow. Then she stretched it, and then all she did was she adds her own paint embellishments right on top of the canvas. And she's like, it looks phenomenal. Matched the colors that she had from her scan perfectly and from the original.
That's incredible. So, now, do you have to use a special profile just for the canvas? Yes.
Yeah. We did make sure that we had the right profiles for the canvas and a couple other things. We did run a couple different tests on on the inks and how much saturation and everything that we wanted to make sure that it was coming out good. But it's been great. Pretty much any color that I've asked it to hit, I can get within a couple tries. So
now, do you use like Pantone colors? Do you have a profile for Pantones as well, or do you just try to use whatever your profile is in your Photoshop or Illustrator?
I do have a Pantone one. So Roland does have a lot of downloadable
profiles.
Profiles for their medias, or for certain medias, and also for certain colors and stuff, which have been super useful. And it's been, like, honestly, I was surprised how easy it was to to hit certain colors and stuff. Like, before, I'm spending half a day printing out just
color samples
and going through trying to hit it, and I'm just like, oh, this is killing me. But no.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I used to I had an older Roland, an SP540V, complete workhorse. Black sucked, but it was manageable. It was manageable. I knew my limitations, so I'd have to send the prints out to someone else to have printed if there was a lot of black. But the one thing, as you kind of get into the wide format aspect of the business is, the whole thing about outgassing and when is it time to laminate. Now, with this new Roland TrueViz equipment, do you let your prints outgas overnight as well when you're doing like a wrap or anything like that?
If I'm doing a wrap, I definitely do.
Yeah.
With the inks, it's kind of crazy because by the time they hit the ground from the print bed, the heated print bed,
yep.
By the time they hit the ground, they are 100% dry. You can rub your hand across them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can stick it to itself and it's not pulling up the ink, because it's not even mildly wet. They're totally dry. But, just because of car wraps and their nature and how much material we're printing on, I would rather wait an extra day and laminate it rather than have a failure and then have to reprint and go through all that media again.
Yeah. What's your process for outgassing? How do you have did you buy into the whole like outgassing rack, or do you just kind of unwind it? Those are out there. That's why you're laughing.
Yeah,
it's kind of just one of those things. Everyone's got a different system. They put them on racks. They just unwind it off the core. Because that's what I used to do. I used to just, when it came off the printer, I would just wind it in the core, leave it loose till the morning, and be done.
Yeah, that's pretty much. Or just leave it loose so that it can,
breathe.
Just outgas. Yeah, and then depending on how long the print is how long we'll leave it. Because if it's like a boat, and it's something like 22 feet long for one side or something. Then we'll probably try to leave it for an extra day or something, because in that roll, when you just kind of loosely roll it, there's just so much more material and there's so much more tightly, closer together, even when it's loosely bound, that we'd like to leave it for just, a bit extra time. But we haven't had any problems yet with anything coming, delammed. So hopefully we're doing it right.
Or colors fading when they're not supposed to be fading. That's always a fun discussion to have with the client a year later. What's the longest print you've had come out of that new machine?
Man, I typically run, like I said, I do a lot of signs, and those ones that we've been running on those in last summer when it was our busy season, or right before, right when we got it, we were running probably 30 feet.
30 feet. Wow. With no shifting at all. How do they still have the old pinch?
No shifting.
Do they still have the old pinch rollers on them that you can adjust?
They do. They still have the adjustable pinch rollers on them.
Yeah.
They look pretty much the same as far as I can tell.
From the old ones.
They changed them.
Oh my God. I used to push those pinch rollers to the max, all the way to the edge of my film, just to get as much print space as I could.
Just to get an extra half a centimeter or whatever it is.
Yeah. I wish they would do like how Muto has it. Like they have the rollers that go across from end to end, and it's like continuous pressure throughout the whole thing. I mean, that would be ideal to have. That
is one of their downfalls. I know that if I leave the media locked in for the night, after I'm done, if I just leave the rollers locked down to hold the media in, the next morning, if I go to print anything, you will have little indentations right there on your media, which is not, ideal. It's funny because my old machine, the Versa Art, it has a ton of rollers, but they're not movable.
Really?
And they're just locked in, and so it just automatically reads the material, because it was designed to run to print like whole rolls at a time, like 150 foot roll at a time.
Wow.
And so its rollers are like, man, to me, they're much more, they're just better. They lock it in tighter and they don't leave any marks on them. And you don't have to adjust them. It always just measures exactly how long the material was. But I don't think, with the print and cut machines, though, you always have that one roller that has the mark on it to let, for the cut, which has to be movable. So that's kind of, I guess it's one of those give and takes,
Yeah.
Has a cutter in it, I can print and cut on the same machine really quick, but then, I have to deal with those movable rollers, which aren't the greatest. But
How do you like the all-in-ones with the print cut, other than, you only having one machine to do it? Because I know, as far as VersaWorks and Roland, usually one suffers. I don't know about the new machines, but I know when I had my older one, I'd maybe get like 8 or 10 feet, and then it would start skewing like crazy. Don't know why, but that was always my downfall. I mean, that's why I ended up buying a 54-inch Suma to cut separately, but it also helped me out with production. I was able to do both at the same time. If someone showed up for some cut lettering, I could just cut it and not have to stop the printer from printing, which was great. But how is the technology now?
Man, it's great. Everything that I've ran, printed, and cut on it has come out pretty flawless. Haven't run into any issues with the blades being off. You know how it kind of shifts, and then all of a sudden you're cutting off half your decal towards the end.
Yep.
The only issues that I've ever really had with that we kind of learned early on when I started working with Rollins is when we were running like long, like words or anything, something goes on, 40 inches worth of text or anything, we would try to run them horizontally on the print media, because we found that if we were running them vertically, then it did kind of have a tendency to drift on the older machines. This one, I haven't had that problem. And I think it's dumb, but the simplest solution is on the back of it where you would normally put your rollers, they added locks. So you mount the roller into the carrier, and then they have just little twist locks at the bottom. And so once it's locked in there, that roll doesn't shift from side to side at all.
Easy solution.
Yeah, easy solution.
Wow.
But I noticed that it's on this new one. I didn't have it on my old ones, and I'm like, man, I don't get any drift anymore. And all you had to do was just put a little thumb screw lock on the media holder. And
voila.
Yeah. I was like, oh.
That's awesome. Now, does it also still print the line and then the dot in the beginning, and does it only do it on all four corners, or are you able to get more dots so it registers longer prints?
It still does them on the four corners for the print and cut. So I haven't run anything super long yet with print and cut. It's still kind of a bit of a pain to line that up, unfortunately.
There's no good way.
But other than that, it seems to be doing, pretty good. Haven't really had any problems with it. I do know that once we get busier with doing our print cuts, because I do have another smaller cutter. I've got like a 30-inch cutter, and I do have an older, I think it's a Zen Black cutter. It's like an old US cutter.
Okay.
That, man, I've had that for a while, and it's the big one. It's 72 inches, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. And I don't even use that anymore. It's just sitting in the back. I need to get rid of it too.
Craigslist.
Yeah. It's just gathering dust. But I do know as we get busier, then, the print and cut in one machine is really nice. Like I said, if you have small space, kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
But once you get into it, you definitely need a separate cutter to print and cut on it so that your printer's not always bogged down cutting rather than printing. So
tell me about one of your favorite projects you've done so far.
And I've done a lot of like crazy wraps before that I enjoyed. I always enjoyed doing helicopters. I thought those were really fun.
Helicopters. Wow.
Yeah. I used to put a lot of reflective decals on medical helicopters, life flight and stuff like that.
That's a cool, that must have been a cool project.
Yeah, they were cool. There's actually a very small helicopter airport about a mile from my house, and one of the guys there that I did work for him, they buy the helicopters from like private companies because it's, I guess, on a helicopter after so many hours it basically has to just go through a rebuild. You have to rebuild the engines and everything just for safety, in case something happens to it.
Makes sense.
And so a lot of these big companies, because they would get them from like, what was the last one that I did that they had? It was like a Tijuana tour of flights, they fly you around the coast and stuff. It was just ridiculously orange and yellow and blue colored helicopter. And so they would buy it because those companies found it was just cheaper to go buy a new one that they didn't have to deal with it than to pay for the rebuild.
Right.
So they would buy the old ones, rebuild them, and then they would have me come out there, and then they would sell them to Life Flights and stuff. And then they would have me come out there and either put paint masks on them so that they could paint the tail numbers or repaint it, and then come back out there and put all the reflective badging on them.
That's cool.
Those were always super fun to do. As far as doing stuff for my own company, for Inkwise, man, we've done, I don't know if you saw the Utes motorcycle that we did.
Utes motorcycle on your social media? Is it
on there? It is. It's on our Instagram. It's a black motorcycle, and the whole thing, for the University of Utah. That's the Utes. It's one of the schools here, and the college. And we embossed the entire thing in Polynesian and Maori tattoo designs in satin black.
I must have overlooked that because I was creeping on your Instagram trying to find as much information as I could. And after you saying you weren't on social media so much, you weren't lying. Try to get as much info about you through your social, and I must have overlooked that one. But that must have been a cool project. I love overlays like that for like an embossed look.
Yeah, no, it's funny because when you look at them, I'm actually going through my Instagram right now. I'm like, I swear it was on there. No, it's on there. When you look at it, it's just like black, and then you start scrolling through it, and you really have to zoom in, and then you see all of the emboss on the whole tank and everything. That was a really cool project, and then, man, I really am terrible. My wife gets mad at me all the time. She got mad at me. I finished some parts. She goes, "You take pictures of those?" No. And
That's all it takes. Picture, post.
And I'm like,
Picture, post. So easy.
She's always on me for that.
It's all good. Well, we'll get you up to speed. Get you up to speed with that. But yeah, talk to me about some other little projects. I know you've done a couple shows as well.
Yes.
You've wrapped up some shows. Talk about that a little bit.
So, growing up in Idaho, we have a dome that the local college plays in there in Pocatello, Idaho. And Idaho State University has a dome there. And every year they have a great automotive program, teach paint and bodywork and everything like that. So their fundraiser to fund their whole year for the program is they host an indoor car show. And I think they typically have like 20,000 people running through there. It's the biggest in Southeast Idaho. It's a full 2-day show. And so I grew up going to that show. Loved the old hot rods, loved, old school cars and everything. And when I started my business, I said, you know what, I'm kind of just working out of my garage and basement anyways. So it doesn't really matter. I don't need to have a brick and mortar store because I can't afford it. And, I'm going to be wrapping in other people's garages anyway. So we went up there, and I was like, it's a 2-hour drive to my hometown. I'm like, we're going to do this indoor show. So we contacted them. They had a spot open for us, and we got in there. And the first car that I did was my little brother's 2010 Camaro. So I said, you pay for material, and I'll wrap it for you. And he's like, okay. And so I did the design up for him on the hood. It came stock with just the normal hood stripes, and I think it had the hockey stripes on the side. So during the show, we peeled them all off, and then we, satin black the trunk, the hood, and the roof with custom knifeless cutouts on the cowl, so you could see the yellow through it. Nice. And then we put the, I think they're called the hash marks on the sides of it over the fenders, and they had custom cutouts around the hood too. Blacked out the grill and everything. Super fun. Man, we had a crowd of like 60 people just sitting there watching us doing that hood at one point, which is kind of nerve-wracking because you're like all these people watching you, critiquing your work, and you're like, please don't mess up.
Yeah.
Um,
Knifeless, cut straight,
yeah,
please.
cut straight. Yeah. And it was black, and it was satin black. So I'm like, I hope I laid this right on that body line, because if it's off, you're going to see it.
Oh, yeah.
But super awesome to do that show. And I did it with, for that one, for his Camaro. And then the next year, we had a Velociter that we just tried to do a full wrap. And I'll tell you right now, we did not make it. 2 days, we did not wrap that whole car in matte blue in 2 days. It was just too much to try to do with people talking to you. And, and we were doing everything. I was like, we'll do bumpers and everything. And, bumper, you're like, hey, you lay it on there, and people are like, oh, cool, it stretches and it's on there. And that takes 5 minutes. And then you're sitting down there on the floor for the next 35 minutes, tucking and cutting it out.
Right.
And, and it was just tons of waste of time. So what I've learned from shows is that they're great advertising. And I always got business from them. And I actually have another one coming up here on the 25th here in Salt Lake City. It's Scrape Fest. So if you're in Salt Lake, come out. And we're going to be doing a live wrap there. Things that I have learned about, if you ever want to do a live wrapping at a show, pick the car carefully. You don't want to pick something that has a lot of really complicated parts that take a long time. Because you can do a door in like 20 minutes.
Right.
Being slow at it. They're pretty simple, but at the same time, it's like, okay, that's a door, and it's like, all right, well, here's a mirror. A really complicated mirror. That's going to take you like an hour. So you got to kind of pick and choose your cars. And I learned a lot of that by watching other people do their live shows, and then also my failures about not being able to wrap a whole car and a couple other things. This year at SEMA, at the Avery booth, Justin Pate wrapped that C10 truck, was it 3 times a day or whatnot? But the funny part is when you go look at that, they did a bunch of different colors, but when you look closely, you'll see that like the front part of the hood, the entire cab, underneath the front bumper, there's all these parts on that they had pre-wrapped in satin black, and they stayed satin black through every wrap. And the reason that they stayed that way is even though they were speed wrapping and it was looking great, those were the parts that you could not speed wrap. They just take time because of their shape and how to get things in there. It's not conductive to wrap that piece in a show, because it doesn't show what wrapping is. It's just the tedious stuff that no one really wants to watch, and they can't really watch it because most of the time you're like hunched over in front of it and no one can see what you're doing.
Right.
So when you pick a car, you pick something that you can do fairly easy, but showcases the best of your abilities. For the show that we're coming up here in March, we actually have a 350Z that we're gonna do pretty much a half wrap, 3/4 wrap on it. We're not doing the bumpers because they take a long time. We're doing hoods, roof, and then on the doors. Great thing about the 350 is they've got those kind of chunky door handles that are silver,
right?
And it's a white 350, and so I don't have to take the door handle off. I can just cut around it. And then the design that we have going on it, that I've been working on, we're using 3M's their IJ180 clear on it.
Nice.
So because it's a white car, the clear was invented, I think, for more of the full print plumbing vans or whatnot. They're like, I only need a half wrap, but white vinyl never matched the millions of shades of white paint.
Correct.
So you'd always see this giant line of where the wrap ended, and you're like, well, that's attractive.
Yeah, right. A nice bright white color.
Yes. Yeah, the vinyl was always way brighter, and so it's just like made the rest of the van just look dingy.
Right. Sun bleaching.
But with the clear vinyl, you can print on it, and if you put it on white, it doesn't change the colors of that have been printed, but you don't get that line. So we're going to print on that, and we're going to wrap basically from the front door, start of the front door, to the end of the quarter panel. So it's only a half wrap, but the entire thing will blend in with white paint, so you won't be able to see a difference in the white. To showcase that material, we're actually doing kind of like a hand ink drawn and like water paint design. So it does have some fades in and out so that it'll look like it has been full wrapped. But, basically I'm wrapping a door, a hood, a roof, and then, one of the smallest and simplest quarter panels that are out there.
Have you used that material before?
I have. They sent me a sample roll. And so we've been messing around with that. And I've actually got it's kind of crazy. I've got a lot of really good ideas to use that on, because being clear, it lends itself to a lot of new possibilities that I'm super excited about.
How's the ink coverage on it, as far as it being nice and solid color? Because I know when you're printing on clear or something like that, you usually have to do a double pass or whatever the case may be. The profile is pretty
Right.
good first time.
Yeah, profile's been pretty right on. That's why I was super excited that they came out with the clear in the IJ180, because I've printed on clear before, and just like you said, doing double passes to make sure the ink's thick enough, and then
Right.
is it soaking into the material? Is it, and a lot of times you're like printing on, clear vinyl that's made for backlit signs and stuff, not for
Right.
cars. And you're just like, well, I hope this works. And, but it's been pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So
3M's definitely stepped up their game as far as, seeing a void in the industry and kind of creating this new technology, which is incredible, because like you said, people like us, designers can now really take this to its full potential and really look outside the box and use it in different ways that maybe it wasn't used for,
Yeah. And, I saw a video, I'm trying to remember who did it, but they used the new clear, and they were doing a Lamborghini in it. And it came in that like robin's egg blue, color. That was the original paint color. And they did it, and it was like almost a rust fade from black top down, and it was all just clear and with that paint. And, obviously wrap's not as clear or is not as thick as a paint protection film, but at the same time, it's way easy to work with, and it's not nearly as expensive. And having that clear is kind of like a budget, PPF that you can actually put designs in.
Right. I just feel like with the clear, there's a little bit more prep involved over
Definitely
a basic white,
Yeah, if you get some dirt in there, or leave anything underneath the vinyl, even if it's smooth, you're like, that's never coming off.
That's
You're
it.
like,
Once it's stuck,
yeah.
there's no going back. You're
like, that's my custom printed grease thumbprint right there.
Yeah. What's your prep gonna be like for this? Are you gonna have to like clay bar it and do all that stuff?
Yeah. So the owner of the car, he is actually in school doing automotive paint and everything. So it's been recently painted. So it's, I think it was painted within the last year. So it's still good paint, but definitely clay bar. And that's the other thing, is most of the shows that I do live wraps at, they're all indoor shows.
Right.
Never try to wrap outdoors. It's just going to make a mess for everybody.
Definitely.
But yeah, clay bar, tack rags, especially even more so when you're at the show and when you get ready to wrap. We make sure that we have everybody kind of, if they're coming to watch, that they, kind of like a barrier that's like stand, this far, so that we're not getting excessive static electricity building up when we peel the backing paper to then, suck up all the dirt. And that's the other thing, is cleaning, especially at a show, cleaning the floor where the car's at, because people are going to be walking around it after the wrap and kind of before to see the other things that we've wrapped. And we're actually going to have 3 cars there, so there's going to be another car parked next to it. So definitely make sure you're cleaning the floor before you start wrapping live, because it'll suck it all up with the static electricity. And then, yeah.
all that hard work goes to
Yeah.
crap once you take the backer off. A good trick for
Yeah.
that is just wetting the floor too,
Yep.
if you're able to. Wet
Yeah.
like three,
At,
4 feet.
at least take a wet rag and, get it all
Keep it
a little bit
down.
wet before you start. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a good trick. So tell me about your. You were talking about Justin Pate. You had just recently took a Avery class, correct?
Yeah. I actually passed my certification on Friday.
This Friday.
So this Friday.
Good for
Yeah.
you. Congrats.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Um, yep. So I went down to California. I wanted to get my certification at the beginning of the year, and that was the closest one to me. And so I went and they had the advanced color change class that I took, which is the 2 days before certification. So that was Wednesday and Thursday is the class. Friday was certification. And so I just went down there. I had taken a class from him before here in Salt Lake.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we did that one here, it was like, I think he just had extra time with flights or something, because it literally was like, it popped up on his Instagram and I was like, oh, look at that. And I was like, oh, that's like in a week and a half, and I was like, okay. And so I signed up like super fast because I was like, oh, that's cool. And so I'd taken a class before. And so I went down there, get my certification. I was like, okay, let's do the class again. There's the advanced one. The class I did before was kind of more the digital print side, which I was already pretty, I've been around that world. So I already knew all that, but I was like, go down there, learn a bit more, and then hop right into the, learn and practice, and then hop right into my certification test. And it's good. It all turned out well. And we drove down there, so I'm glad I didn't have to make a 10-hour drive back, knowing that I'd failed certification. That'd have been a long drive.
Oh yeah, definitely. How did you like the training class?
I actually like the classes a lot. Justin is obviously a wealth of knowledge, been doing it forever, been teaching for a long time. And that's, a lot of the guys that know how to rap and rap extremely well can't teach how to rap.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nothing against their skills. Both my parents were teachers. My dad owns a gymnastics studio. I grew up teaching gymnastics for like 15 years. And it's just one of those things. A good teacher is kind of hard to find, who can teach for your understanding. And I think Justin actually does that extremely, extremely well. And so does the whole Avery class programs. They're always too short because there's always more that you can learn.
Mm.
And I guess that's the one thing that people need to understand. It's like, just because you've gone and taken the classes, or like, in my case, I've gone and I got certified, that doesn't mean that every certified installer is going to, make every car app and every graphic come out pristine,
Right.
Because once you get that certification and you leave, it's like, okay, how to, you've been certified, they've tested you. Now it's kind of up to you to determine whether or not you will do that,
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of great installers that aren't certified, and there's a lot of terrible installers that are certified. And it's just kind of, what you, in my opinion, what you want yourself to be known as, and how much effort and, do you want to put forth in your apps? Because, just being certified doesn't mean all your stuff's going to come out awesome. You have to put forth the effort and the work to justify that certification, saying, no, everything that would come out is going to be of this high of level, and then maintain that, and then don't slack with, any of the steps in between.
Yeah, you definitely got to implement everything you've learned into every install, because every install is going to be different, because every different install is, you're going to have a different car. So
yep.
That's a big key. What did you dislike about the class? Was there anything you disliked about the class other than it being short?
I think the only hard part about the class is the fact that classes, and I'm trying to remember how many people we had. We had a bunch. We had 3 cars that we were all working on during the class. And I know we had 11 people for certification testing on Friday. And I think we had like 20
students.
Yeah, students during the class. It might be a little bit high, maybe like 17.
Yeah.
The
Still a
hard part
lot.
is still a lot. And the hard part is Justin's doing his best, but you've only got one instructor who obviously he does the demos and he shows and everybody can kind of see that. But then personally, one-on-one, hey, you're making this little mistake. You need to do this just a little bit, pull here just a little bit differently. You're holding your knife just a little bit, at a wrong angle. That's why you're going to cut the car, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just those little nuances. He can't be everywhere, looking over everybody's shoulder, which is hard on him. He does his best, but only having the one instructor for, 15 people, that's hard to do.
It's tough. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's, every time that he's up there, he tries to do his best, but it's just hard to get to that many people to give them all individual attention when you're wrapping a car because it takes, so much time.
Right. I think everyone's kind of had similar dislikes with the same situation, with it being a lot of people in one class and not everybody's being helped, evenly, so to say, which is tough. I mean, if maybe they threw in like a helper once in a while that may know enough to just help with little things like that, I think that'd be nice.
That would be cool. And usually the shops that he goes to, we did it at Impressive Wraps down there in California. Great shop, man. They had some killer cars out front and they do fantastic work. I would think it'd be great is if you were able to go to, host it at that shop. And it's kind of up to the shop, obviously, but if they had, obviously they have wrappers, if they were able to say, okay, we'll have one of our guys come out, even for a half day and kind of help you out and help these guys do their their practice and their wraps and their, demos and stuff to be able to be a little bit more hands-on instructing with them. But yeah, it's just kind of, as far as the program goes, that's Avery's doing, what they can. I do like a couple things about their program that are killer, which is why I actually did Avery certification first. And then I'm later in this year, I'm actually going to go do my 3M certification as well.
Good for you.
With 3M, a lot of people, they ask, how can I get into wrapping? How can I get into this wrap world and everything? And obviously, for me coming, and for you coming from the print side and full print, it's like, it's this massive expense. And so with the color change, it's great because they just buy a roll of film and they go at it. The great thing that the Avery class does is every Avery class that you take gives you a full roll of color change material.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to be a beginner and you're whatnot, a full roll is about $700. I think the class for a 2-day class is like $850. So you're like, okay, well, I have to buy a full roll anyways. So now the class is only $150. They give you squeegees, magnets, knives, basic tools to wrap a car, probably worth like $50. So it's like, okay, so I was going to need that stuff anyways. You take the class, you spend $100 for the 2 days. You get a $700 roll of material, $50 roll of tools and everything. And then if you're smart about it, go get a roll of matte black and offer all your buddies, hey, I'll do hoods and roofs, for $200 a piece. And they're like, okay. And for a 25-yard roll, you should be able to get 12 hoods and roofs out of them. $200 a piece at $2,400 right there. So
not a bad profit.
Not a bad profit. And you learn how to do them in the class and you get the material. I really like that factor. And, for people that are starting out, I think that's great. For me, getting my certification, I didn't care at this point. But, it's nice to have an extra roll of material that you can get versus like going to the 3M class. It's about the same price, but you walk away with just the knowledge and no material to practice with, which is for people getting into it, that can be a lot to eat, $1,200 just to like, well, I have the knowledge and I have nothing to do with it until I sell a wrap.
Right. So, and then that's not including travel expenses and, if you're not able to attend it in your area, that could be troublesome as well.
Yep.
And that's why I like that a lot of the classes with Avery, they're kind of spread out evenly, West Coast, East Coast. I know I hosted an Avery training class here in Boston back in 2015, I think it was. He had brought in 3 vehicles, same idea. We had roughly about the same, 15, 17 people. I had people come from Connecticut, which is 2.5 hours away, staying up here, traveling at a hotel that was close to my office. And, expenses it's not cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Man, when I was there, I thought I was just going to be all around, a bunch of guys from California. And most of them were, but we had 2 guys that had come down from like Portland area and 1 guy from up in Denver, Colorado. I think we had a guy from Washington, and then I'm from Salt Lake. So there's a good chunk of us that came, a couple hundred miles just to go to the class, and we were all doing our certification. I think that's why we came down, because it was the nearest one to us, earliest in the year.
Nice.
So
nice. And how long was the certification to from start to finish? 2 days?
No, man, certification we started at 7 a.m. and got done at noon.
Really?
Yeah. So, we were going to start at like 8:30, which is when we normally do, but Justin had a flight conflict, so he had to leave earlier. So we just started the class earlier. And so we got there at 7, started around roughly 7:30ish. And then if you passed, you usually finished up around 11:30 or 12. But man, certification was a little bit nerve-wracking. I'm not going to lie. It was, it's like, okay, you need to wrap this. Okay. You need to wrap it, basically as perfectly as you can, because you're going to be judged upon it. It's like, oh yeah. And you're timed, ready, set, go. And you're like, oh, okay.
And then you're having the top rapper in
yes,
the world
and
watching you.
Yeah, and you're like, and who's our judge? Oh, probably, the most well-known rapper in the world. No pressure. I'm cool with this. Yeah.
That's so funny. So it was pretty easy, other than, getting the nervous jitters out.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. So you have 4 main tests. You have a color change fender that you can take. You're allowed to remove, what is it?
Headlights.
Man, my mind's headlights and stuff. My mind's like drawing a blank here.
You need those.
So you are allowed to remove stuff off the car, but it's timed. So you also have to have it put all back together by the time ends.
Oh.
And I think you only get 50 minutes for the fender. So if you're going to take the headlight all the way out, you have to put it all the way back in.
Wow.
And the car that we had that day, since we had so many people taking the test, we actually had 4 cars. The 3 of them we had practiced on, for the other 2 days. The car that I got, it was a white Prius, and that was the first day that I'd ever seen it. And so I was like, okay, I don't even know how to take this fender off. And you had to take the bumper off to take the headlight out. So it got 2 screws loosened enough for me to move it up and down. And I was like, that's it. So you do a full color change style fender. And then on the hood, it's a full wrap style or a full print style. And you have to make sure your graphics centered and everything like that. And then the door is the rear door is same thing, a full print style, but you are not allowed to remove any hardware. So no window moldings, no door handles, and you have to wrap the door cup or the door handle cup and the door handle, the door, and then you have to put window perf on the window. And so that's the door. And then once you've passed all 3 of those, then you go on to the cutting test, which is make sure that you're not cutting on the car. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if you cut on the car, you fail automatically at any time during your tests. And if you fail one test, that's where you stop. You've just failed the course and you don't get to move on to like even practice the other ones. It's like, you're done. That's it. Wow. Yeah. And then the cut test is they put a piece of vinyl on the window and then they put another piece of vinyl on top of it. So you got one piece of vinyl on top, one on the window, one on top of it. And then you have to do 5 straight cuts and then 3 S cuts. And then he'll come by and he'll peel each one of them off, and he'll peel the back piece off. And if you've scored it or if you've cut through it, you fail.
That's tough.
Yeah. So, and it was, all in all, and then there's a written test after. Or
On top of everything.
Yeah, I think normally you do the written test first, which is basically knowledge about the Avery products and the color change as well as the printable film. So you know what you're dealing with, as far as when you receive a roll of material, you're like, what is this? And you kind of know its properties. So the written test, I think, normally is given before the practical test.
Yeah.
But because we were in such a time crunch with Justin having to fly out a little bit earlier than I think they planned, we did the wrap test first, and then we had our Avery rep, Dave. He issued the written test and graded that. So
wow, intense. That's so cool though. I'm happy for you. I mean, for someone being in the industry for so long and taking advantage of training, it's always good to have that plaque on the wall when people come by, and you can kind of let them know that you're Avery certified, and it just kind of lets people know that you take your craft seriously and that you're trained, which is great.
I think that's what it is more so than being able to know how to wrap, because like I said, there's plenty of wonderful installers that aren't certified, but I think it's just shows that I'm investing in myself and in my business, just to show that, hey, I am certified. I took the time to invest into myself because I take my business seriously,
right?
And I take your car and your business seriously.
Yeah, I love that. The premium giveaway that you got involved with a little bit with Daniel. Tell me, for someone who's not social media type of person, you were able to find out that he was doing a giveaway in Utah and offered him your shop to actually wrap the car that they were doing a giveaway for. Yeah,
I saw some of his videos and I was like, oh, cool. I was like, somebody's making a channel about car wrapping. I was like, this is sweet, So I'd kind of been following his videos, and then I saw the car giveaway and stuff, and I sat there and I was just laughing to myself. I was like, I should enter this, and then I was like, nah, I'd feel so bad if I won. It's like I'd feel terrible, It's like, who won? It's somebody who owns their own wrap shop.
Hey, there weren't any.
There's no rules against it,
right?
So, and I was like, nah. And so they were sitting there, and they pulled a name out of the hat, and they're like, all right. And they're like, where are you from? And he said he was from Salt Lake. He's from Utah. And I'm like, man, I was like, those guys are going to be up here, from doing those car shows up in Idaho, in my hometown, I got business from them. And I used to go up and wrap cars in my parents' garage and in other people's garages. And I mean, I wrapped full print cars for Big O up there, in a neighbor's garage. And I wrapped, we made it like a Tiffany blue, I think it was a Jeep Cherokee.
I saw that with some black graphics on the doors.
No, that was the Veloster. That was the one that we didn't finish the car show. That's what it looked like when we got done with it. No, it was a Tiffany blue Jeep that we did up there, and I did it up there in a garage. And the garage I did it with my parents, it's like a typical garage. You can't park a car in it. So we had like half of the car in with the door up, and so we're like, okay, and we would wrap the whole back half, and I had one of my brothers was helping me, and then we got to the roof and I was like, okay. And I told him, I was like, okay, on this front part that's obviously been outside and it's really hot, I was like, this is going to be really sticky. I was like, we got to do this, in one go, because it's going to be a mess to pull up and reposition it. But so I had done those before, and it sucks installing in a garage, that doesn't have any space. And, we'd barely gotten our new building that we're in now. And I was like, you know what? I was like, man, I don't even know if he's even going to get my message or whatnot. So I think I DM'd him on Instagram, and I was like, hey, I know you guys are coming up here. I was like, if you need space, feel free to use my shop. And I was like, well, there goes nothing. I was like, probably won't even read it. Like, no joke, like 2 minutes later, he just pings me back and he's like, dude, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. I was like, you guys are going to be up here on the weekend. I'm not working the weekend. The shop's empty. I mean, it really was like no big deal for me. Because I really didn't have to move anything or, budget anything, during the week or anything like that, since they would come up here during the weekend. It was totally just open. So I was like, why not? I've dealt with the pain of installing in a garage, and this guy, you're giving him away a car app. Let's make it cool.
That's awesome. How cool was it when him and his team came up and finally got to meet?
Oh, it was great, man. Those guys were awesome. Going to be able to hang out with them, with Daniel and Mitch, and I think and Johnny and John were all up here. Those four came, and dude, super great crew. Those guys are awesome. It was great to be able to swap knowledge with them too. They took away a lot from the print world that I had, and then I took away just their meticulous in their details. About their disassembly of the car and like why they, do certain things and everything like that. Just, high class on everything that they did. And it was great to be able to, Daniel was awesome, being able to include me in what they were doing. And I'm like, dude, I just want, said, here's shop space. And he's like, no. He's like, I want you to be part of this, and I ended up designing a banner for him. And then, they included me, and I designed up the windshield banner that went on the winner's car. And we custom printed on the 3M psychedelic and then laminated it. So, and he didn't have to do any of that. I was like, man, I'm super grateful. That's awesome to be able to be a part of them. It's funny because when I was down in California last week, I actually went and saw those guys and hung out with them. And we were talking about all the stuff that they'd been doing with trying to get more into the custom print world,
Yeah.
Because I think they were doing skateboards and just smaller decals, and they're getting ready to do printed windshield banners and stuff like that. And, like an idiot that I am, my wife, after I left, she's like, so did you take a picture with those guys? Oh, no.
Another social media.
Yeah, another.
Boom,
And I'm like, so I'm like, no. But no, it was great to be able to work with them. And it's amazing that just how much, one thing has actually benefited me in my business. Like I think it was later that week, I had some guys, they're like, oh, hey, we need our roof wrapped, and we didn't know who to go to, but we saw you with Premium. And he's like, they're cool with you. And, they're like, we're cool with you. So we'll head out there and we need some roof wraps. And I'm like, okay.
That's awesome.
I was like, I'm down with that. And no, it's been super, super beneficial relationship. And Daniel's a good friend and stuff. And I'm just, like I said, I was shot in the dark to whether or not he'd even read that. I was like, man, these guys are probably so busy, he probably didn't even pay attention. But
yeah, Daniel's such a humble guy. I know I talked to him a few times prior to us doing our podcast interview as well. And even afterwards, we've kind of talked a little bit about business. And I think he's kind of opening his eyes a little bit more after listening to a few of the podcasts and learning about different stuff that are out there. Because one thing that you said, you're so kind of involved in your business. You never really so used to the things that are going on. You never look outside the box. And after he had listened to a couple podcasts, he didn't know about certain materials, and he Dad was talking about the printed stuff as well.
Yeah.
Which is such a huge beneficial. It's just money left on the table with the printed stuff. And not having your own technology to print it, yeah, but there's always wholesalers that are willing to help you out,
Yeah, no, I've wholesalers, and I find that other wrap shops are like super helpful. It's not so much as competition with each other as it is just competition within yourself. Just if you're doing the best you can, then you'll get clients, and there's enough to go around. I've had it when I've had printers go down. And I've had a job, and I'm like, crap, what do I do? And I've called a couple other shops here in town that I know, and I'm like, call them up. I was like, hey, my printer's down. Can you print this for me? And they're like, yeah, sure, we got it. And they print it like almost essentially at cost. I was just like, man, this is awesome, And the same thing, I needed some cut vinyl. And they're like, I had one of my cutter had a cutter break on me before I bought a new one, and I had a job that just had to go out, and I called somebody up, and they're like, oh yeah. It's like, just bring in your vinyl. We'll cut it for you. No big deal. And they just cut it for me right then, and I just took it back home with me. We didn't masked it, but they didn't even charge me. And it's just, I kind of want to be in that relationship with other people in the industry because, I know that stuff happens, and I'm like, hey, I'll help you out. I'm not necessarily in competition with you, trying to steal. I don't think our market's that saturated yet that there's not enough reps to go around. And, it's kind of that mentality that, led me to kind of reach out to Daniel when he was down there. I was just like, help out another shop. I've been there. It's terrible. Mapping in garages and stuff. If I can help, I will.
That's awesome.
So,
yeah, that's definitely, at the end of the day, that's kind of what the industry is all about, the community and coming together. If you never just know, when your neighbor's going to be down and you need to, give them a helping hand. And it's always nice to just have, a good person in the industry that you can kind of lean on if something was to go down. That was super cool. When I saw that and I watched the video, I'm like, wow, this guy's awesome for letting him come down and use the shop. Some people may have not have done something like that, and a lot may have. And I thought that was awesome. Big props to you for sending out a DM.
Hey, thank you. I was just happy to do it. Like it's worked out so much better than I ever thought. I thought it was just like, oh, these guys would probably come up, wrap a car, leave, and, it's got friends and relationships and business, relationships coming out of it. And it's been great. But yeah, those guys they've been blown up, and they've starting to get into that full print world, which, for me, I started there. So I've never not had to deal with, making custom stuff and everything, but coming from just like a solid color change world where you just order a roll in a box, and then you put the graphic on there, or you put some through a plotter or do a little bit of knifeless to get a graphic on there. Like, okay, there it is. Where to me, I'm like, well, let me design it up on the computer. Let me do a mock-up for you. And this is what it'll look like, to scale when I'm done.
Love it. Technology nowadays. Back when I was doing it, we didn't have knifeless. You had to cut everything by hand, use the blue tape or painter's tape, and that was that. Man, I used to make not knifeless, but I used to make my own cutting guides. Really?
When you didn't have knifeless, so if we had to cut on the car, so there's two, and I guess this kind of came about working in the car painting industry. There's two types of fine line tape.
Right.
There's your blue fine line, and there is your tan fine line.
Yeah, the blue's thicker, right?
The blue is thicker because it's a PVC, so it also stretches.
Right.
The tan stretches a little bit, but the cool thing is the tan does not stick to vinyl. You can't stick vinyl on top of it.
Mm.
And so what I would do if I knew that I had to cut here, or if I was out of knifeless, because I'm lazy and I don't get any. I don't do this anymore because I'm just like, it's too much effort. But I would take the tan and I would run it where I needed, or I would take the tan and I would run it kind of like your knifeless, where it's like the green tape, where it's just kind of, okay, I need a cut line in the center of this. So I would take an 1/8 inch and I would run it, wherever I needed it. And then I would take the blue and I would run the edge of the blue right in the middle of the tan.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would run it like that. And then all of a sudden I have these two pieces of tape. So I've got a piece of tape protecting the car, but then that blue piece of tape gives me an edge to rest my knife on, just a little edge, so that when I'm cutting, my knife doesn't wiggle because it's up against the edge of that blue tape.
Right.
And the vinyl is stuck on top of it. And then when I go to pull it off, it acts just like knifeless. You pull the blue tape and the trash piece away, and then the tan tape, since the vinyl doesn't stick to it, it just slides out from underneath it and squeegee it down. And that's how we used to do it.
Yeah.
Making,
old school knifeless. poor man's knifeless right there.
Poor man knifeless, yeah. So we didn't cut the car.
That's awesome. I love that. Unbelievable. Micah, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I appreciate you kind of giving us an insight to your shop and sharing some cool stories of your journey in this crazy world of the rap industry. So
No, man, it's been an honor just being on. Thank you for having me on. It's been great.
yeah, no, I appreciate it. Let everybody know where they can find you on social media. Now you don't have an excuse not to post.
No, now I don't. Social media, we're Inkwise Graphics, Instagram, Facebook, even on YouTube. I actually have one YouTube video up that will show you how to make a Photoshop concept template for your cars. But yeah, it's all Inkwise Graphics. Our website is inkwisegraphics.com.
Awesome. So now, no excuses. You're gonna have
No excuses.
You're gonna have to
got to be on top of that.
You're gonna have to be posting daily now. That's gonna be a project.
Yep.
Awesome. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and I wish you well for 2018. And congrats on your certification as well.
Thank you.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Hope you enjoyed this episode of the All Wrapped Up podcast. If you liked our content, hit that like button and review. And to stay up to date with future episodes, hit that subscribe button. Till next time, that's a wrap.